It's Tuesday evening, just after 6 p.m., and this is a spiritual discussion program. This is Saad here in the studio in North London, and my two colleagues should be joining me now very soon. Good evening. Gregory, are you there?
Hello.
Welcome to the show. And Mena, are you there? Are you there, Mena? I thought I can hear you, but I don't think you can hear us maybe. So hopefully, Mena, are you there? Okay, maybe he's not quite ready yet. Hello, Mena, are you there now?
Yes, I am.
Welcome to the show. Dear listeners, this is the spiritual discussion program on Blessed Radio, just as I said, just after 6 p.m. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the grail message by Abdrusheen. And the topic we have, a new topic every week we have, the topic for tonight is intellect, friend or foe. Intellect, friend or foe. And as usual, you can join us on our UK number. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. The number is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. So, my fellow colleagues, I'm here in the studio tonight in North London. It's quite dark now, obviously the sun has gone down, but it was a bright and sunny day, clear skies. Yes, cold, but nice to see the clear skies. So I'm going to ask you, Gregory, where are you today, and how was the weather today where you were?
It was bright here in Worthing, southern England.
Okay, bright and Worthing. And Mena, where are you, and how is the weather? Where you been?
Yeah, I'm still in the heartland, and the weather's been fantastic. It's been sunny today. Yeah, it's been brilliant. Yeah.
Very good, very good. So, dear listeners, the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the grail message by Abdrusheen. I want to let my colleagues know, please, if you can put yourself on mute when you're not talking, so that I can hear a little background sound there. So just put yourself on mute when you're not talking. Okay, so the aim of the show, as I say, is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the grail message by Abdrusheen. And I'd like to give you a few words about the grail message. The grail message in the light of truth by Abdrusheen is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life, for through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover, through the intuitive perception, if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abdrusheen. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic for tonight is intellect, friend or foe. And you can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, our UK number is 079 444 313 66. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 313 66. Now, Gregory, I chose this topic, intellect, and I did a bit of research, and in fact, basically, as we usually do, we look in the dictionary and see what the dictionary tells us, and see if that makes sense, or we can, let's make it clearer from what the dictionary says. So, in the dictionary, one of the definitions I found, the intellect. This is so. Yes, we are talking intellect, friend or foe. But first, we need to know what is the intellect. So, the intellect in the dictionary, it says the faculty of reasoning and understanding objectively, especially with regards to abstract matters. So, I'll say that again. By the way, I did look up a couple of references for the meaning, so I'm going to quote them as well. So this is the intellect is the faculty of reasoning and understanding objectively, especially with regards to abstract matters. And Gregory, shall we start with that first? That definition, because I've got some other ones as well, but maybe we should not build on them just yet, and we could just let's start with that one. Would you say that is a good definition, Gregory, that in the meaning there of intellect?
Well, one would just ask everyone to consider very carefully when the definition is said to be objectively, and it also mentioned abstract matters. The thing is, when you say objectively, does that include the intellect itself? If the intellect is supposed to reason objectively, then it must be thinking of others. Therefore, if we need to apply the definition that has been given, then the word objectively seems to be very nebulous, not correct.
Okay.
And secondly, the word abstract. Here we are discussing what are we using in communicating? Is the speech and the senses of perception. One of it is what we are using. is discussion or talking, is it abstract? Based on those two, one is very unhappy with abstract and objectively, because the intellect is referring to himself, while the writer is referring to itself, and also something abstract.
So that's actually, thank you for that, Gregory. So that's why I did look at a few different sort of sources for the definition, and this is one I found in the Cambridge Dictionary, again for intellect: the ability to understand and to think in an intelligent way. I mean, that's more simpler.
Yeah. Yes. Again, that seems to be simpler, and the ability to grasp, which is understanding, comes nearer to the definition of intellect.
Yes, and I will give you another one. This is from Wikipedia. Intellect is a term used in studies of the human mind. So they're trying to be a bit more broader this time. So intellect is a term used in studies of the human mind and refers to the ability of the mind to come to correct conclusions about what is true or false and about how to solve problems. So I'll read that again. This is from Wikipedia. Intellect is a term used in the studies of the human mind and refers to the ability of the mind to come to the correct conclusions about what is true or false and about how to solve problems. What do we say on that, Gregory, about that definition?
But you can see it's only describing, it's not really defining, because it hasn't mentioned what the mind is.
Right.
So therein lies some of the problems.
Yes.
In all the definitions you've given, you could see that it doesn't fit any set pattern. Therefore, one can find an alternative definition, or at best a simple description. And the question one may ask oneself, what does the intellect do?
Okay.
Maybe that could be helpful.
Yes. So, okay, then let's look at that. Yes, what does the intellect do, actually?
Basically, one may say it is a tool which is required for earthly comprehension.
Okay, yes, earthly comprehension. Right, so that's more, I can say, precise, that one, because that definitely they didn't mention that in the dictionary definitions. So, okay, so it's a tool for earthly comprehension. Okay, very good. All right, now, so that by default means there's something else which is not for earthly understanding. And
yes,
go on.
because whatever is referred to for earthly consumption, also in general terms nowadays, we talk of space. We also, space is referred to and time is referred to. And therefore, one may now join these things together. It talks about the capacity which is tied to material conceptions of time and space. That's a bit broader, but it is now tied to matter, which matter can easily be identified with for very many. So whenever there is a tool which is used for material conceptions of time and space, one may refer to that as the intellect. The question may now arise, is it only matter that there is? If there is something which supersedes matter, then what would one use to grasp that? That means something which is above the earthly material conception of so-called space and time. Because with space, you have content in there.
Right. Well, this is the spiritual discussion program, and obviously we always like to look from a spiritual point of view. And so far we've been looking at, you could say, the earthly or physical matter point of view. And it's obviously from, I'm sure the people who have listened to our show before, they realize that the spiritual gives a wider point of view than the earthly point of view. So, okay.
Yeah.
Go on.
Can I come?
Yeah, come in, Mena.
Yeah. I do want to differ a bit, in regards to the definition of intellect. I'm looking at intellect as a tool which has been actually granted to man in order to understand creation, but it may be all embracing, like, even if you want to say the intellect is the tool in order to grasp abstract or mere physical matter or physical situations, would logically be correct. But my take here is that the intellect has so far been wrongly used.
Okay, so you are saying also the intellect is a tool for comprehension in creation,
Yes.
but
Yes.
it has been wrongly applied.
Exactly.
And so so actually, in fact, I was going to come to that in a second. Actually, because so far all the definitions were quite neutral, because our topic says
Yeah.
intellect, friend or foe. There was not, you can use, and then we use the word tool, but the tool doesn't say you must use it in a friendly way or in a, well, I don't know if there's a word called foe-ly way, but in an unfriendly way, let's call it that way. So you can, or beneficial, maybe put it this way. So a tool could be used in a beneficial way, or in a, let's say, again, you can't have the word unbeneficial, so let me say, I can't think of the right word now. I don't want to say disaster, because that's not really how I'm going to take it at. So let's say
not beneficial
harmful way. So beneficial and harmful. So okay. Yeah, so far, as I say, it's neutral. But Mena, you are saying that so far it has been applied in a
the wrong way. It's wrongly utilized.
Wrongly utilized. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But I just want to question that, Mena, because so much technology we have nowadays, and it's very helpful in our life. And how do you mean when you say harm? I mean, there is this, we've talked in the past about plastics and things which are not recyclable and things are not very beneficial. They're out there. So can you really say categorically this intellect is only being used in a harmful way or wrong way? Like categorically only in that way, or is it partly wrongly? I just want to get a context and sort of a bigger picture understanding of that.
See, if it's been applied, rightfully, if the intellect has been rightly understood and applied, it will get at the right appliances in order to build upon in creation.
Right.
Yeah.
So okay, but
do you understand that? Yeah.
Yes, but I think okay. So just to be clear, are you trying to say that overall the use of the intellect has been harmful?
Not
overall,
harmful. It's not been actually understood in order to get your right application and usage.
Okay, so you're even saying that we don't even know how to use our intellect. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. That is where we are failing.
We are failing how to use our intellect.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And okay, so it means we haven't learned to use it properly. So okay, I'll go back to. Did you want to say anything further, Mena? Because I can go back to Gregory.
Yeah, go back.
Okay, so Gregory, so what, according to what Men has just said, there should be, like, let's say there should be some context in how do we apply the intellect, and how we should find out how to apply the intellect. So can you
Yeah.
give us that bit of context? So how to apply the intellect properly?
Such a question, how to apply the intellect properly, must be considered in a wider context. By that, one means that this intellect is a tool, and if you are presented with a tool, then it is the will of the presenter that is paramount, because the presenter, in quotes, which we may call nature, must have an aim for granting that particular intellect. Like if you look at the eyes that we have to see, there is an aim. All right, the power of speech, there is an aim. Therefore, when we say nature has an aim to have granted these tools for perception, in the same way, nature must have granted the intellect for a purpose. So it is the purpose of which the intellect is granted that one should be investigating. And one of the key purposes is for earthly upbuilding. When one is talking about earthly upbuilding, it becomes very clear, because for man to express himself here on earth, it needs the physical body. And along the line, there is the center of processing information, of exchanging information, of coordinating information. This the intellect is able to do. That being the case, there must be a purpose for coordination, for the upbuilding. Which upbuilding? Man is in the middle of nature. So if there is an upbuilding which must be in harmony, such that man's activities is not just to create or to form something new and destroy, then it therefore means that there must be a specific purpose, which purpose must be that which is higher than the intellect. It therefore means that the intellect must serve as a tool, like a chief executive. A chief executive for whom? So taking a step backwards, it means there must be, for each personality, each individual, that which uses the intellect as a tool. And that particularly must be the soul of man. And in using this particular intellect, it itself must be drawing power from somewhere and making use and using the intellect as the instrument to, or as the chief executive, to implement that which it has drawn, that which comes from out of the soul, must be referred to as the intuitive perception, whereas the intellect may be referred to as the instrument for earthly perception.
Thank you for that clarification or even expansion of this context of where the intellect works and how the intellect works. So thank you for that. I think we need to explore further on that.
Yeah.
Go on, Mena.
Yes. It's good to actually give a wider context of the function of the intellect. I mean, how the composition of the intellect. We should at this point, be clear to ourselves that we do have the whole brain, the physical anatomy of the brain as the seat of the intellect. If the brains, the whole system is to work as it should, we shouldn't have a problem in deciding on what we have to do in regards to our purpose and our choices in creation. But to the best of my knowledge, this is not been the case for a long while. I'm telling you, over millennia, and how that is why even we could, say that we are failing in the use of our intellect. The brain, as we all know, consists of two parts. We have the frontal brain and the back brain. Which is the makeup of the intellect, if this is to be applied as it should be, we will be in heaven as of now. But because we have chosen to exercise one at the expense of the other, we are now in a situation where we have found ourselves, not in that state or world as we should, be. So, in that regard, we can now begin to see whether we have used it to our advantage or we have used it to our disadvantage. Whether it is now our friend or it is now our foe.
Okay, thank you for that. And so I'm just going to take this moment to let the listeners know you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The aim of the show is to introduce the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrusheen. And the topic we're discussing tonight is intellect, friend or foe. Intellect, friend or foe. And you can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us to our UK number, which is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're interested in getting a copy of the Grail message or want some more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that: www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. Mena, just to continue from where you were talking there,
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about the failure of not applying the intellect properly.
Yes.
And then Gregory came and said that they, so provided a context, a wider context, that basically, let's say nature is the, in quotes, I'm going to use the word in quotes, creator of the, you can say, the universe, and also the, let's say us, it's created, we are a product of nature, let's say, and so in other words, we have been designed by nature, and intellect is part of the design, but there's something else also inside. Basically, we need to consider, which is the soul, which Gregory mentioned as well. And then when you were talking about that, somehow we haven't explained that actually. Somehow the way we are using the intellect is not. I forgot the exact word you used. It was. Can you say that word? How we are applying it? The intellect. It wasn't destructive. It was something.
But I said we have not been, applying it as it should be. So we have been failing in the application of the use and application of the intellect.
Yes.
And that's why it has now become our friend rather than our
right. So it's not a
foe.
It's become a foe rather than a friend. The intellect.
Friend, yes.
Okay. So let's maybe look at that as well. Okay. What is?
I did read. I did go on to say that the brain itself,
yes,
which we have two parts,
right,
which we can rightly consider as our intellect, is being disproportionately developed. So one is now actually exercising more influence over the other.
Right. So are you saying? So you said there are two parts to the brain. I think you said the frontal and the back brain, and one. Did you say it's overdeveloped, the brain?
One part is actually being exercised more.
Exercise more.
Yeah.
So does that what you're implying is it should be actually not? It should be a balance, is it?
There should be a balance, exactly.
Right. So which what is the one that is, let's say, how can I say it, being dominant?
Okay, we have the frontal brain, which is the cerebrum,
right,
which is the one we use and it actually controls our thinking, our vision, and our hearing.
right.
You see that this is what this is where we are stopped. Since it controls our thinking, vision, and hearing, we have centralized all efforts at understanding our purpose on earth to this part. Whereas, in addition to the functions of the back brain, which is the cerebellum, which controls our balance, our muscles, and most of our actions, our coordinations, is also the seat of the spirit. If we had, been using the brain aright, what we gather from nature or from our vision would first of all be sent to the back brain for interpretation, which is the seat of the spirit, and together with our helpers will give us an understanding of how to proceed aright.
Right. So just to be clear again, the intellect is becoming the dominant one, instead of being instead of being in a balance with the you could say with the spiritual.
Yes.
I see. And okay. So how did that happen? What has gone wrong? You can say because at the moment I still notice this is all. How can I say the brain or the intellect is just.
I've just said since the frontal brain is the seat of our thinking, our visions, and hearing, we have actually developed or actually attributed all our effort with we've concentrated all our effort on using the frontal brain to actually give us solutions, to delve into solutions, and to find results to our problems on Earth. And that is still what is actually ruling or running the show of our decisions on Earth today.
Okay.
Have been, yes.
Yes. All right.
Yeah,
And
so everything we do today is, we get, if there's a problem, yes, we think over it and find the solutions based on our thinking.
mhm.
But if if our thinkings were right, if we had been using our brains right, we would first of all seek advice from the spirit, our spiritual energies or our spiritual impressions. We'll be gaining spiritual impressions on our decisions before we take them.
Okay, so what I see, what I think, yeah, if I follow you correctly, so we were depending, let's say, fully, not fully, but a lot of our energy is going into solving our problems, earthly problems, you can
Yeah.
say, in an intellectual way, rather than
But,
having guidance through the spirit.
just when you say intellectual, yeah, well, it's based on thinking, yeah. So
Yes.
it's not actually based on the intellect, because if it's intellect, then you would have been using your brains properly. You understand that? That's what I mean. Because the two brains were actually given to us in order for us to actually um, live alright. You understand that? One was not supposed to be developed at the expense of the other, or it wasn't given to us as as a negative instrument. You understand that? They were given to us as what we could use in order to actually enjoy creation.
Right.
One working with the other and creating that balance, and giving us the roots and paths to a better life.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Trying to see what we can. Okay, so that's, let's say, that's what has happened. That somehow the intellect, we've sort of overused the intellect without referring back to the spirit in our decision making, you can say. So, or in
Yeah.
our living our life. Okay. So that has become detrimental for us, and so you can say the intellect has become our foe. But
Yeah.
yeah. So Gregory, the topic is the title for the topic tonight is intellect, friend or foe, and it doesn't. But the word intellect, I mean, the way we describe intellect, it's not really that intellect is a friend or a foe. It's just a tool. We talked about it as a tool. So, is it really intellect a friend or a foe, or is something is how can I say? It's what is driving it, turning into a yeah. How is it really correct to call intellect a friend or foe? Let's maybe check that first. So yeah, what is intellect? Is it meant to be a friend? Is it meant to be a foe, or is it just neutral? Yeah.
Well, it is quite remarkable that this is discussed again and again, intellect, spirit. But the whole thing is still very confusing because we see many streams of reasoning. Intellect, like we discussed, is a tool. Who makes use of the tool? It is the spirit or the soul that makes use of this tool. If, however, the user, the one that makes use of the tool is too indolent to do so, then the consequences is what you now have. For there must always be a balance. When you have a tool and you make use of this tool in accordance with the intentions of why that tool is given, then it is beneficial. If, however, you yourself are too indolent to make use of this tool, to know when to make use of it, to know when to apply the capabilities of the tool, then the fault is yours. So in these discussions, it is very wrong to consider the intellect on one side, the spirit on one side, and then we. There are no three things in this. There are only two. The human spirit, who is too indolent to make use of its intellect, which is the tool granted to it, is the culprit. So, on the one hand, we have a tool which is not controlled, becomes disproportionate. That means it goes, it's like a wide garden. A garden which is not cut. Everything grows on it. Whereas a good householder who cuts his garden, such will bring him or her joy. So there are only two here. The human spirit that makes use of the tool. If it doesn't understand how to make use of the tool, this biological tool outgrows and he wouldn't know how to interact with it. So it becomes very clear when the intellect becomes unbeneficial because it is out of control. Control, however, should come from the human spirit. If, on the other hand, the human spirit is too lazy because it does not exert itself diligent enough, the intellect will do what it knows how to do best. Consider only what's here. It is here on earth. It keeps going. Whereas the human spirit, or many a human spirit, are asleep. That is the problem.
Thank you for that. So really what you've said there is the control of the intellect is under the spirit, and if the spirit is not acting aright or has been indolent, as you said, then it will misapply, as Mena has mentioned earlier, the intellect, and so obviously we will reap what we sow, as we know. Okay, I want to look at another aspect now. In the world, people respect intelligence, right? Which I assume is from the intellect. So if you can correct me if I'm wrong to say that. But there's people respect intelligence. And, you find intelligent people being quite successful in the world, in running companies or making inventions and so on and so on. So it sounds a good thing, actually.
Right.
Okay, Mena, you want to say something?
Yes, I would want to correct you on that. If you want to put it intelligent, it means someone who is intelligent would know how to use both brains correctly. But if you say someone is a scholar, so you're talking about somebody who's a good scholarship, a good scholar actually, is somebody who uses one, who bases his own decision on one part of the brain only. So that is just looking at a brilliant scholar, not an intellectual.
Hmm. And what are you saying from that?
Yeah, that you try to that somebody who is intelligent
Yes.
would use the brain in accordance with how it is supposed to be used.
Hmm.
Somebody who is using just the frontal brain, just the thinking part, for basing his decisions and actions on that is not an intellectual as such, but just someone who's just a scholar, a brilliant scholar.
Mm-hmm.
That's my uh, that's my way of explaining it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. So at this moment, I'm not clear whether. So you're not saying. Are you saying that the scholar is applying it correctly or not correctly? Because
Yeah,
or just the way they
the
apply.
scholar is, I mean, is somebody who's just a brilliant scholar who doesn't use the intellect properly, would
Hmm.
base his decisions only on, the decisions which are, or the, how I call it now, the results which his thinking has produced without actually sending it to the back brain for spiritual input.
Hmm. So it's like one-sided. You're saying
Exactly. Yeah.
it's using the pure intellectual analysis, you can say, rather than including the spiritual assessment as well.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Okay. Okay. So, right. So in a way, the topic that we have, the title is a bit not really appropriate in some ways, because it's not that the intellect is friend or foe. It's just how it has been applied. So, and then really, as you've mentioned and Gregory has mentioned, we need to have the spiritual input
Yeah.
as part of this, the working of the intellect. Okay.
Yeah, because
Now,
it's been, wrongly, disproportionately, used, it is becoming more of a foe than a friend.
hmm,
So the topic is still relevant.
okay, I'm going to give a scenario now, and so we can look at this, in some practical way. So let's say
Yeah.
I go for 2 job interviews, and one job, and I get I get a job offer after both the interviews. One job says I get a higher salary than the other job, and so if, let's say, if I were to just look at it in quotes intellectually, I would say, well, let me just take the one that gives the higher money, right? Because
Yeah.
that seems to be the, good for my pocket, you can say, or let's say earthly benefit. It's more suited for my earthly benefit, because I can do more with more money, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
however, now let's say we have to consider the spiritual input.
Yeah.
How would you assess? Because we have to have a practical understanding as well.
Yeah, I think
So,
you see,
so
you rightly said that, like what Gregory is trying to explain, that, if you being a spiritual being, you
yes,
would first of all, give that decision, take that decision based on, what your spirit has given to you. And the only way you can actually give a spiritual assessment, is to send that, send it through the spirit, right?
right.
By sending it back to the back brain for interpretation before you take a decision.
Hmm.
And that is where you have that's where your helper can give you an input, or could help you in deciding.
And I
Yeah.
remember, I don't know if it was you or Mena or Gregory mentioned about guidance,
Yeah.
sort of spiritual
It,
guidance, and
yeah, it's not. I understand. Yes, guides. We're not actually. I don't think we have been. The human spirits have not been allowed guides yet. It's only people who are actually, at a very high level giving guides. But we have helpers, and they deal with our consciousness.
Yes. So, okay. So I just want to, because we have said already, the way the intellect has been applied is wrongly applied. It's so resulting in failure. And now I want to sort of look at it how, what do we do about this situation, basically?
So if you have a job interview and you have what is the you've been to a job interview and one is offering you a higher salary, you would not, first of all, you will not just, jump at the one which is higher. You first of all get guidance, or your guidance, or get, your helper to make the decision for you. But if you run the equations, intellectually, let me say not intellectually, just using your frontal brain alone, you might just give a mathematical decision based on the figures you have. So you might just get a scholarly decision, not a well-rounded, decision as a normal intellectual should, analyze and assess problems.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, Gregory, I want to continue to look at practical things, and I know we are not too much into politics, but sometimes there's some good examples we can find there. So I want to try that one. So, for example, in UK we got Boris Johnson as the Prime Minister now, and he obviously very clever. He's been very clever, and he's managed to win the election quite well. And the thing is, what I'm saying is, we went to. He's highly educated, obviously got high intelligence, and it seems that people seem to value that, and because I'm not saying Jeremy Corbyn wasn't an intelligent person, but somehow it seems the success, let me say, your success on the earth, if I'm going to say like that, depends on your intellect, and being able to be, and people seem to be swung by that. So maybe I'm being too simplistic in my thinking, but or talking, analysis of this. But what I want to say to Gregory, the question I want to put to Gregory, is it on the earth only the intellect can really be sort of successful, and then although we have our spiritual aspect, and then once we leave the earthly, where the spiritual can manifest more strongly, let's say, and it is more successful in the beyond, let's say. So is there some like advantage, some sort of predisposed advantage for the intellect on the earth over the spirit, compared to, let's say, when we are in the beyond, where the intellect is, let's say, not as so active, and it's is it, yeah, so is there something like that, Gregory, that is giving this intellect sort of let's say predomination somehow?
Thanks for the question. My first response is, may I request very strongly that our questions be simplified, because sometimes it becomes so long and it is difficult to follow. First, there is no intellect after the earth. For the intellect is a product of the physical body, and therefore, if, as we know, that the physical body falls back dust to dust, therefore there will be no intellect for man to use. What is left is that which has always made use of this intellect, which is the soul or the spirit of man. There, only the intuition is at play. So once there's clarity that the intellect does not exist outside of the earth, and that the physical body has remained prostrate and is of no use anymore, so one would not talk of the intellect beyond the earth. Secondly, one must also understand that in man's activity, when it concerns that in which the spirit participates actively, it is that of lasting values, that of permanent or longer lasting values, not success as many view it. Success in which they can cut corners, cheat, and things of that nature. Because the spirit advises or provides activities of lasting value, that is what counts. There are many who do not wish lasting values. They want something that they can just use very quickly and dispose of. Most of such things, when viewed correctly, are only intellectual. Take, for instance, the case, like you mentioned, of plastic. It was something which has to be done very quickly and okay, without careful forethought. Whereas that from the spirit is of lasting values. And if one may come in here, in our discussions, we must stop considering the intellect, the spirit, and we. Because it gives the impression of there are three realities here, whereas there is just one reality. That reality is the spirit, and that this spirit makes use of this tool, which is the intellect, which is required for earthly comprehension. And the earthly comprehension is limited to the contents, which contents we define as space and also the activities in time. So, knowing fully well that the activities of the intellect are limited to earthly concepts of space and time, whereas the activities of the spirit transcends. It only means that the bits of experience which is pushed back to, or which the bit of experience which the spirit absorbs, it makes use of. You gave the example of having jobs. Even if that person chose that of a lower, in quotes, salary, the spirit evaluates that which will be of benefit, which will be of lasting values, not that which will be of transient. For the intellect doesn't care whether you have stolen the money or done something wrong. All it knows is, okay, this, that. Whereas when it comes to conscience, it's able to review. That means the spirit is now able to participate, it is because these impressions which have been gathered from the outside, passed on to which the spirit, the intellect has gathered, it is because these impressions do not go back to the spirit. That has always been the problem, because the spirit consummates all this impression, which impression would have been useful to the spirit. And therefore, it makes decisions which are only on short term. Which short term, it doesn't know of morality. Whenever the intellect is concerned, because it hasn't allowed the strong impressions to go to the spirit, or because the spirit is too indolent to absorb these experiences, which experiences will be considered in terms of the morals, which morals only have arisen from deep within the spirit in one's conscience. If that situation is not the case, then you have the quagmire which we all are in, because of the minimal cooperation or the indolence of the spirit. So it is the spirit that is not active enough. You cannot blame the tool which is granted to you. For if you are active enough, you will know how to control the tool. You can take the simple example you find every day. If you do not train the dog so that the dog will go out and is able to perceive, all right, if the house is on fire, or is able to be on the alert, that dog will want to sleep in the bed and you sleep on the floor. You cannot blame the dog. It acts within its own limit. So this intellect, if not controlled, will draw all sorts of conclusion, will not understand, and precipitate war in other countries, because it is so short-sighted. Whereas with the spirit active enough, it would have taken the necessary experiences in and advised and said, no, I won't make this, I won't go this way. But above all, there is another that makes use of the short-sightedness, the haughtiness, the impoliteness of the spirit, of the intellect. And that are those who have the devilish impression, or one may say the darkness. The darkness we should suggest many short-term and watch you fall into the short-term activities. Therefore, one has to be careful. Once the spirit is awake, it is not the intellect which is awake, it is the spirit. And as you will find in the walk in the light of truth, awake, the bandage falls only points when the spirit is examining everything. So the advice, let us concentrate on the spirit. Ensure it's awake to be able to make use of his tool, rather than to blame the tool.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that reply, Gregory. You gave a very comprehensive picture, and I think the listeners, it would be good to just almost to listen to that answer again, just to really take it in, what you have said there. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. And if you want to get a copy of the Grail message or want some more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is intellect, friend or foe. Intellect, friend or foe. And you can join us with any questions or comments at our UK number, which is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. Now, Gregory, go on, man. You want to come in?
Yeah. Let me acknowledge what Gregory has just said. It's I think it's given a very good picture there. That in order for us to actually gain from our thinking, we do have to get results from the intuition, which is actually the back brain, which is actually the seat of the spirit in the human body. Yeah, which connects, which actually gains impressions from the spirit, and the product being our intuition. If that is brought there on our decisions, we will be in paradise. We're walking in paradise as we are meant to have been from the, how do I call it now, the purpose of living here on earth. I would also want to stress that since this has not been achieved, the actual usage of the frontal brain at the expense of the back brain, without actually bringing about that balance, is actually the fall of man, which is referred to in the Bible.
Can you just say that last bit again, Mena, about the fall of man?
Yeah. I'm saying that the development of the frontal brain at the expense of the back brain, by not gaining our we're not, how I call it, matching or marrying our decisions with intuition, has been the fall of man, because you have now cut off the spirit from our day-to-day decisions. We now decide our actions and our duties now intellectually. And that's why we are failing. And that is why we can now consider the intellect as more of a foe than a friend.
Yes, and but I remember Gregory saying, really the only thing that is really, how can I say, active is the spirit, and the intellect is only the tool which the spirit is using. So it's really how the spirit is acting that determines the failure.
Yeah, I agree.
If I understand that correctly.
When the spirit is, cannot take part in your decisions, it becomes cut off, and you can just merely be taking, intellectual decisions, or just decisions based on, the frontal brain. Now, your spirit would not fight because it's, locked up, and all you are doing is just being a physical robot. How shall I call it now? Just a machine working on in creation, making intellectual decisions without the input of the spirit.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Gregory on that now. Gregory, in our previous shows we have sort of talked about the dire situation in terms of the, let's say, environment. We talked about the Australian bushfires, climate change, so many things going on in the world, which are, quite devastating. And so what I want to ask you, Gregory, now, is there really a way out? Because as Mena has been talking there has been a failure, with the application of the intellect, and we've allowed it to become so dominant. As we mentioned about the plastics, how seriously that is affecting, not, it's mostly, let's say, the other nature, other animals, you can say whales and so on, that are having the more direct effect because they're in the ocean, and rather than us directly. But let me get the question clear. So what I'm going to ask you, Gregory, is there any, with the situation we are in, this dire situation that we're in, is there any sort of way out? Is somebody going to come in, sort of overturn man's activity, or is it man who has to find a way out himself?
Well, that is a very pertinent question. Now, you talked about the environment. The environment in which we live as personalities, as human beings, is a mixture of what nature has provided pristine and the way we have generated through our activities, our thoughts, our intellectual thoughts. These thoughts, intellectual thoughts, and sometimes intuitive thoughts, they also form an environment. This environment we cannot hold with our physical hands, but the environment remains. Our thought environment remains there. Or are we going to stress that our thoughts are nothing? Are our thoughts not solid because we cannot hold our thoughts in our hands and examine it? The thoughts are always there. And the thoughts, as long as they are maintained with the power which streams through creation, such structures remain for a long time, and they do affect our physical environment, like the happenings which you mentioned in places like Australia. The same thing happens when we keep the center of our activities, of our thoughts, we keep it pure, pristine. Pristine in the sense of the personality or what nature has granted us, the purpose for which nature has granted it. By doing that, we build an environment which is also very good, which is harmonious. And things like this random, in quotes, fires, which spring up when it's least expected, may be minimized. Moreover, one should also realize that human beings are not the only occupants of this earth. That before human beings arrived here on it, there were others. Of course there are plants, of course there are animals. All these structures arrived before the human spirits. And understanding that there are many more structures, which structures are those we can perceive with our physical eyes or physical means. There are other structures that do the maintenance of the world of matter or even of the earth, of the universe. These thoughts of ours do affect them in a beneficial or in a destructive way. These thoughts of ours cause some perturbations. Perturbations, that means a shifting from the normal course. And these perturbations are what now manifests as catastrophes for those who do the maintenance of nature, who we are supposed to sort of align with. When you break off from them because you are too indolent to reflect along that direction, then it becomes like a field which is uncultivated. And we all know, if you have a garden which is uncultivated, all sorts of weeds will come and settle there. Some will be growing slowly, some will be growing. You have all sorts of things. And if you leave that garden uncultivated for a long time, then all sorts of animals, all sorts of terrible things will start happening. The same thing happens when we do not control the intellect. As soon as many individuals start focusing on that which is noble, on that which is virtuous, the possibility then arises that we now work in harmony with those who are responsible for maintenance. And what then happens is that because you work harmoniously, the results, the returns, will be upbuilding and it will be happiness. In such a way, many will start perceiving, first intuitively, the existence of these personalities. At the same time, because man is striving, his blood radiations will start changing bits by bits, because what he takes in into his bloodstream or into his being changes, albeit gradually, the radiations which he now puts out there. And in the gradual purification of his radiation, that which he was unable to perceive becomes apparent, clear, and there will be no need to argue about it. Then, one may say mankind is proceeding in the right direction because he is in harmony with his neighborhood, which neighborhood also include that those beings which maintain nature or maintain creation and other human personalities who, like him, have come here to experience and perfect themselves so as to become self-conscious. Self-conscious because they are now aware. They are aware of the manifold possibilities which has been placed before them for self-development. And then, and only then, maybe gratitude for the power that made it possible may well up in many.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for again a comprehensive answer there. I'm going to slightly go on to another topic here. When we started the show, one of the definition I read from the dictionary about intellect being objective and so on, and also we talked whenever I do introduce the grail message, I say this knowledge is logical and gives clarity and so on. And then I started to think, okay.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's cut off as well.
Okay.
Oh, you can't hear me?
No,
Yes, we couldn't hear you.
Okay, apologies. I don't know what happened there. So, Gregory, I just wanted to say, when we started the show, we were talking about the intellect, the dictionary definition of intellect being objective. Okay, and also when in the beginning of the show, when I talk about the grail message, I say it is logical. It explains things logically and clearly. And then I started to think, okay, we always mention in this topic tonight, we have to mention the intellect, and we're also mentioning, of course, the spirit, which works using the intuition, as we have mentioned. Now, I wanted to ask, is the intuition also objective and logical? Or, like, can I say wishy-washy? I can't think of a word for it. Subjective, isn't it? They use the word subjective. Or is it subjective? And why I'm asking that is we talk about morality, and let's say maybe no two people will agree about morality. One person will say, no, that's not morally right, and the other one will say, no, it is morally right. So what I'm trying to say, and we say morality is connected with spirituality or with the intuition. So how can we know? My question is really this: is spiritual or intuition objective and logical, or is it something subjective? And let's start with that first.
well, can you take that question again, because you got.
So okay, I'll say the question again. So I'm just saying, I just want to give a bit of background before I ask the question, because we've been saying the intellect should be, let's say, governed through the spirit, the intuition, right? Should be under the guidance of the spirit, let's say, okay?
Yeah.
But what my question is about that is the intuition logical and objective, or is it subjective? So the point of that is that one man's opinion or one man's view, spiritual view, maybe another man, let's say, not agree with another person's spiritual view. So it's like it is no longer objective and subject. It's only subjective. So you can't really agree. That's my point. So one man's
okay.
Yeah.
What one should understand on the long run is that the spirit itself, in its activity, radiates whatever it has received, and in interacting or in its experiences, it absorbs that which is according to its own capability. So when it is said, is it objective? the question is asked looking at the object. But we should not forget that the spirit is only interpreting, is only giving its own view of that object. Therefore, it is the spirit or it is the personality that is expressing his views on what it has observed, his view on the object. That doesn't mean precisely that is how the object is. A very simple example. As children, the song Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, how I wonder what you are. Here, a child is saying twinkle, twinkle, little star. Can you consider that that star is little, a massive body with radiating so much energy? And yet, in our view, we said it is twinkle and it is little. So we are reporting most of these things, our view, our impression. And that is why it is difficult to say it is objective. It is our view of it. The object itself is a massive star, radiating like the sun, tons of energy. Would you now say the child's song is wrong, when in reality we know now that that star is a massive body and that twinkle is only a radiation? So in these matters we are expressing our understanding. As we mature, we keep dropping. All right, the maturity only means that the human spirit is coming to a finer, more precise reality. The manifestations now change as one matures. That is why there is a difference between the object which we are observing and the subject. We, in our impressions, are part of the whole. What happens most of the time, we isolate ourselves. When there is some catastrophe, some murder somewhere, we talk about the object. Somebody has gone through this and this has happened. But we tend to forget that through our thoughts, we also contributed to that catastrophe which has happened somewhere. So, are we objective? So these are the questions which each personality must ask themselves. Most of the time we are subjective because we remove ourselves from the equation and assume we do not contribute to a particular scenario. What, however, does not change are the laws through which every object, every activity or many activities came into creation or came into existence. These laws, which we refer to as the laws of nature or basically laws of creation, these laws have always remained the same. They themselves do not change. These laws form the basis, the framework of all that exists. And therefore, to understand creation or nature itself, we need to strive to understand these laws. Only then maybe we can have a glimpse into the structure, into the categories which have been woven into the fabric of this construction which we refer to as creation. And then we ourselves should understand we are part of it, but we also contribute to it.
Thank you again, Gregory, for your answer there. It's really important to have that perspective that you have described there. I'm going to follow up on that in a moment. I just want to remind listeners you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrushin. And if you're interested in getting a copy of the Grail message or want some more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is intellect, friend or foe. Intellect, friend or foe. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comment. The number to contact us, our UK number is 079 444 313 66. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 313 66. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. Now, Gregory, I'm trying to just think the picture that you built up there about being objective and subjective, and you gave this brilliant picture of the child with the poem Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and pointed that of course the star is actually massive, not that little that we were talking in the poem. And then it reminded me of what Jesus said, become like little children. And then I thought about that, become like little children. Like children are not complicated, They just say, they enjoy 1 minute, then they cry the next minute, and they laugh at the next minute, and it doesn't matter what happened the previous minute. It doesn't. They just enjoy every moment. And then when we turn into adults, somehow we dwell on things. Now, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but start dwelling on these things, and suddenly you could say we lose touch with our child like qualities that which was giving us joy and happiness and fun. Somehow as adults we lose that. So my question is, what did Jesus mean when he said become like little children? Because obviously we cannot turn into children when you're an adult. So what did he mean by that?
Well, the idea of being as little children is to use the features of children, which is that of simplicity and purity. A child will only ask for what it needs at a particular time. It won't ask for so much that it cannot handle. And many times it is focused. If it wants to go out to play, it is play. If it wants to sleep, it is sleep. Consider many times the case of the adults who cannot sleep because it has allowed the activities, the day activities, to interfere so much that is unable to sleep. It's always thinking about things which are of no use. Actually, you gave a beautiful example when you mentioned that the child will laugh, cry, and it wouldn't dwell on it. But look at the so-called adults. It will dwell on the very bad things. It will not dwell on that which is good. It will dwell on jealousy, on how to kill, on how to steal. So, whereas with the child, it will just give it a thought. In the next second, if it is not of benefit to it or brings it joy, it won't go there. If you compare that one with the so-called elders, first it will cultivate envy. It will cultivate to eat until it can eat no more. It will cultivate to drink until it can drink no more. Give a child some milk. Once it's satisfied, it moves, it pushes it aside, goes on to the next activity. But look at the man of today. It should be one hand eating, one hand driving, one hand quarreling, one hand. The examples are there. So there is no need to go deeply into it. But above all, when it is said, become as little children, only stress or points to the fact, do not go out there searching for problems. Many things has been presented to the human spirit. Many things are out there. If it uses its ability aright, is able to receive, not take, to receive. To receive only means to be open, to vibrate in such a way that you are able to perceive that which is of benefit. And this is achievable. But no, many would not do that. Instead of them to look at their nearest neighborhood to find an answer, they will want to go very far away. First, formulate a theory, complicates it, it breaks down, and keep doing all sorts of things. So that has been the case. But our discussion is only very narrow. To understand the discussion rightly, it is very important that many should strive to grasp this work in the light of truth. It is not because we are saying it, but whoever makes that effort will arrive at a point where it's as if scales have fallen from their eyes and they are able to make use of the knowledge in such a way as to build peace, harmony, and joy first within themselves. Harmony, joy, and peace is achievable only by those who strive to purify themselves, to keep the hearts of their thoughts pure, because you now provide the seed of happiness. How do you expect to reap joy when you yourself are not joyful? How do you expect to reap happiness when you yourself are not happy? Always moody, always complaining, always swearing. Of course, when you keep swearing, people of a like nature will come very close to you, not only in the physical, even in your thoughts. Other beings who like swearing They will enjoy it and they will supply you with all sorts of things so that you become the best swearer. It's the same old story. So the change should come from us individually, not from the other side. Do the best you can.
Thank you again, Gregory, for your answer. There's something also that occurred to me, which is in the Grail message about a clarified spirit. And I felt we could read about that from the Grail message. I'm just trying to actually locate the section where it is. And I'm looking for it as we speak. So let me see if I can find it. Mena, just to check, do you have anything you'd like to contribute right now?
No, you can carry on.
Okay, all right.
Yes. Yeah, I was just looking at the questions we have developed, where it says Jesus did not choose many of his disciples from the learned. Well, what was his the basis of his decision in doing that?
So, if I can, I think.
Could you repeat?
Yeah, he said.
We didn't hear
Jesus,
that.
yeah, Jesus did not choose many of his disciples from the learned. What was the basis of his decision?
Sorry, I don't get the sense. You say Jesus did something.
Yeah, he chose his disciples.
Choose his disciples.
So in choosing his disciples, he didn't choose them from the learned, but from the layman, the lay people he met. What was the basis? Why didn't he not make the choice of disciples from the intellectuals, as we want to differentiate them to be, or classify them as?
But we can be very well saying that majority of the people are simple people, and to have a good representation, only those who express themselves simply and should be drawn close so that when they now have to interact with others, they can also express themselves simply to other people. Whereas in the so-called intellectual, the likelihood is that they will use many terms which is very obscure, which the majority don't even understand. Then what sort of communication would you call that? So many of the activities, of Jesus himself, are such that they are simple, they are consistent, and able to reach many a human spirit that is simple. For the laws through which all came into existence, these laws themselves are simple.
Yeah, I think I would also want to add that, not necessarily he didn't actually discriminate by not taking those who were highly placed, intellectually, but those who still gave room to listen to their intuitive perceptions, who gave leverage to their intuition to also speak for them. Because I would know that people who went on to become disciples after Christ were really highly placed in the society then as well. Okay.
Yes, thank you for that, Mena. I think I've found the place what I'd like to read. I didn't prepare for this before the show, so it's a little bit. The starting point may not be the ideal, but I think I should start here. Okay. I'm just going to say, yes, I'll start at this point. This is from the lecture in the Grail message called Consider What is of Benefit to You. First, recognize yourselves aright and avail yourselves of that which God offers you for your use, employing it in such a way that it can also blossom forth. Then the earth and the entire sphere of creation left to the human spirit for his activity must and will become a paradise, where only joy and peace dwell. For the law of creation will then work for you, with the same certainty as it must now work against your activities, and it is immovable, stronger than the will of men, for it rests in the ray of the primordial light. The hour is not far off when men must already recognize that it will not be at all difficult to live differently than hitherto, to get along with their fellow men in peace. Man will become seeing, because all possibility for his hitherto prevailing wrongdoing and thinking will now be taken away from him by God. He must then acknowledge with shame how ridiculously he has behaved in haste of his bustle that is so unimportant for real life, and how dangerous he was to the whole of that part of creation with which he was graciously entrusted for his use and enjoyment. In the future, he will live only to the joy of his fellow men, just as they will to his joy, and he will not always carry about envious desires for what he does not yet possess. The ability will awaken to develop the beauty of his personal environment to the most glorious blossom, to fashion it in complete accordance with his nature as soon as he brings it into the great blissful swinging of the simple primordial laws of creation, such as I could teach him with the message through the love of God, which this time helps by punishing in order to save those who still possess good volition and humility of spirit. If you wish to build up, clarify your spirit first, and make it strong and pure. Clarify it, which means to let it come to maturity. Creation is already standing in the time of harvest, and man as a creature with it. However, he remained behind in this through his stubbornly wrong volition. He placed himself apart from all the swinging willed by the light, and must be flung out of the already intensified and more joyful rotation of creation, because in his immaturity he cannot maintain himself therein. The popular saying about the clarified spirit is quite right. A mature or clarified person can very easily be recognized, for he stands in the light and avoids all that is dark. He will also radiate peace around him through his nature. I think I'll just stop there.
Yeah, I think that is right. Yeah, that is right.
So, dear listeners, that is a section.
Yeah,
I have just read out from the lecture, consider what is of benefit to you from the Grail message by Abrushin, which of course we recommend to you to examine by yourself.
Can you just read the next paragraph, please?
Oh, okay. If you're okay.
Yeah. Or the next two
Okay. So
paragraphs.
okay, there will be no more hissing up. Sorry, I'll say that line again. There will no more. There will be no more. Sorry, start that again. There will be no more hissing up, but calm objectivity in the great swinging of joyous activity, or cool severity, which in all friendliness will clear up and throw light upon the frailties of those who have not yet been able to become strong in spirit, but who are still subject to fermentation, which must bring about purification and clarification or destruction. Is that okay there? I think.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Because otherwise we might as well read the whole lecture. So yeah. So I think we should just
it's a spur for people to actually pick up the message and read. Well, it's just a spur.
So yes, it's a spur. Yes. So yes, as Mena is pointing out. So dear listeners, just to remind you again, that was a section from the Grail message, from the lecture. Consider what is of benefit to you, and obviously we do recommend that you do pick up the Grail message and examine it for yourself. Okay, now we've just got about 5 minutes left, I think. Let's see, to go. I think we can just, there's no point asking a further question now. Gregory, is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Well, on a weekly basis, we have these discussions. It's only the hope that the discussions are a pointer to the work itself. For it is what is of benefit to you that counts. We, or personally I, can say it has been of benefit to myself. And I do hope for those who within themselves are strong enough may find the opportunity to examine this work and are able to draw lessons for their personal lives.
Thank you for that, Gregory. And Mena, is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners, please?
Yes, the time is now. That discussions like this have now come up to your hearing. It's not without purpose. The topic chosen today has been a very sensitive one and an important one, based on the fact that our decisions are now more or less without intuitive perceptions, and that is where we are failing. It's now time for you to pick up your cross and follow the truth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mena. Dear listeners, thank you for joining us tonight. Hope you enjoyed our discussion on the topic of intellect, friend or foe. And as everybody's mentioned, we do urge you to pick up the Grail message. Just to remind you, you can go to this website if you want some more information or you want to get a copy of the Grail message, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell it: www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And of course we'll be back next Tuesday as usual with a new topic. In fact, we know the topic already. It's going to be what exactly is sin. What exactly is sin? So we obviously welcome you to come and listen to us there, but the main thing is to pick up the Grail message by yourself, examine it, and you will see how wonderful it is by yourself, because we are only here to give you a pointer, as Gregory has mentioned. So thank you very much. Do join us next week if you can. All the best. God bless. And we should be getting Brother Sayom joining us in the next hour, or in fact in the next few minutes I should say. His show is just due to start very soon. So all the best, everybody. I wish you a great week.
No cigarette smoking in my room. Yeah. I Stephen Marley, Bless FM radio, play good tune.